My family forgot my birthday, but they remembered my $58,000 hospital bonus. At 11:53 p.m., with 7 minutes left of the day, I turned 34. My mother finally called me. Not to say happy birthday, not to apologize, not to ask how my 12-hour shift at Mercy Children's had gone. She called to ask if I could give my brother Blake $12,000 for his food truck party. I was sitting on the edge of my bed in navy blue scrubs, my shoes still on my hair falling out of its bun. My apartment smelled faintly of antiseptic microwave soup and the small lemon cupcake I had bought myself from the grocery store bakery on the way home. One cupcake, no candle, no card, no text, no missed calls. But on Facebook, my family had spent the entire evening celebrating. Not me, Blake. There he was in my parents' backyard, under strings of yellow lights, raising a beer with one hand while my father gripped his shoulder like he was presenting him to the world. A white banner stretched across the fence behind him. Congratulations, Blake. My mother stood beside him with both hands pressed to her heart, smiling like her son had just built a hospital instead of getting approved for a second barbecue truck. My aunts were there. My cousins were there. Church friends were there. Neighbors from the old block were there. Someone had brought trays of ribs, coleslaw cornbread, and cupcakes with little plastic truck toppers. The caption under my mother's post said, "So proud of our son. The Mercer name keeps growing. Our son. The Mercer name." I stared at those words until they blurred. Then my phone rang. For one stupid second, hope rose in my chest. Maybe she remembered. Maybe she was calling before midnight because she felt guilty. Maybe just once my mother had looked at the date and thought of me before thinking of Blake. I answered too fast. "Hi, Mom." "Hannah. Thank goodness you're still awake," she said. Her voice was bright, busy, breathless. "Listen, I need your help with something." My heart sank so quietly it almost felt normal. "What is it?" "Blake and Kara are doing a proper celebration next month for the new truck. Tonight was just a small family thing, but the real event will be at the church parking lot. Food, music, local press, if your father can pull a few strings. We need someone reliable to help cover the catering deposit and some setup costs." I looked at the Facebook photos again. Tonight was a small family thing that included half the town. How much, I asked. "Well, Mom said," stretching the word like she was softening a blow, "your father thinks $12,000 should cover most of it. And you just got that hospital bonus, didn't you?" There it was. The bonus. The one I earned after helping rebuild the pediatric asthma response program at Mercy Children's. The one that came after months of double shifts training new respiratory techs, rewriting discharge instructions, and sitting with terrified parents at 2 a.m. while their kids fought for air. My supervisor had cried when she told me. She said, "Hannah, children are coming back less often because of what you helped build." My family had not asked one question, but they remembered the money. "Mom," I said, forcing the words out. "Today was my birthday." There was a pause. Not a guilty pause. Not a shocked pause. A pause like she had misplaced a grocery list. "Oh, honey," she said finally. Was that today?" I stared at the picture of Blake grinning over a cupcake with a sparkler stuck in it. "Yes," I said. "It was today." Well, with all the excitement around Blake, it completely slipped my mind. "You know how hectic things have been." I said nothing. Then she added softer but sharper, "Hannah, don't make this about you tonight. Your brother finally has something worth celebrating." Something worth celebrating. I looked at my own cupcake on the nightstand. Plain, small, unlit. Apparently after 34 years, my existence still didn't qualify. Mom sighed. "And honestly, sweetheart, you're grown. Birthdays aren't such a big deal at your age." I kept looking at Blake's sparkler. Apparently birthdays were a big deal, just not mine. "So about the deposit," she continued. "Can we count on you?" Something inside me went still. It didn't explode. It didn't shatter. It simply stopped begging. For most of my life, I had tried to become the kind of daughter my family would remember. Responsible, helpful, low maintenance, useful. The one who never ruined dinner with feelings. The one who switched shifts to drive Mom to appointments. The one who brought rolls to Thanksgiving, washed dishes after dessert, and smiled from the edge of every photo. But that night, with my birthday nearly over and my mother asking me to fund another celebration for my brother, I finally understood something I should have understood years earlier. In my family, I was not forgotten by accident. I was forgotten because remembering me didn't benefit anyone. "I have to go," I said. "Hannah, don't be difficult. This is important to your brother." "I know," I said. Everything always is. Then I hung up. At midnight, I stuck a kitchen match into the cupcake because I still didn't have a candle. The tiny flame bent sideways in the air from the ceiling fan. "Happy birthday to me," I whispered, and for the first time, it didn't sound pathetic. It sounded like a warning. 3 days later, my mother accidentally added me to the wrong group chat. That was when I stopped wondering if I was overreacting. I was in the break room at Mercy Children's halfway through a dry turkey sandwich when my phone started buzzing against the table. Once, twice, then again and again. The group name appeared at the top of the screen. Blake Truck, launch planning. 13 people. Mom, Dad, Blake, Kara, Aunt Denise, Cousin Marcy, 2 church friends, a few relatives I only heard from when someone needed a casserole, a ride, or money for a fundraiser. And me. For about 10 seconds, nobody realized I had been added. Those 10 seconds told me more than 10 years of family dinners. Dad Hannah needs to cover at least $12,000. She just got that hospital bonus. Hannah, 1N. My own father had misspelled my name while assigning my money to my brother, Aunt Denise. Is that fair to ask her for that much? Mom. She doesn't have kids. She doesn't have a husband. What else is she spending it on? Blake. She owes the family anyway. Mom and Dad paid for plenty when she was younger. Dad. Exactly. Family supports family. It's time she stops acting like she lives on an island. Kara. Maybe ask gently. She gets sensitive when Blake is involved. Blake. She'll do it. She always does. She'll do it. She always does. My sandwich turned to paper in my mouth. Then another message appeared. Blake. Besides, she works at a hospital. She'll always have a paycheck. I'm the one actually building the Mercer name. My hand went cold around the phone. Building the Mercer name. There it was again. Legacy. In my father's mouth, in my mother's captions, in my brother's confidence. Legacy had always been the word they used when they wanted me to disappear quietly. My coworker Carmen slid into the chair across from me, still wearing her cartoon cloud badge reel. Her eyes missed nothing. "You look like somebody just handed you bad lab results," she said. I turned the phone around. She read the messages silently. With every line, her expression changed. When she finished, she pushed the phone back across the table. Oh, Hannah, that almost broke me. Not Blake's entitlement. Not Mom reducing my life to the absence of a husband and children. Not Dad treating my bonus like family property. Carmen's softness broke me because it confirmed what I had spent years trying not to believe. It really was that bad. I wasn't dramatic. I wasn't too sensitive. I wasn't making it up. Someone else could see the wound. "What are you going to say?" Carmen asked. I looked down. Mom had just written, "Don't mention the birthday thing. She'll use it to make us feel guilty." I laughed once. It came out cold. "I'm not going to say anything. Nothing. Nothing." My father always said silence was a sign of respect. For once, I decided to use it for myself. That evening, I stopped by Mr. Ellis's apartment before going home. He lived 2 doors down from me, a retired mailman with bad knees, sharp opinions, and a habit of leaving paperback mysteries outside my door when he finished them. I had started bringing him groceries during a snowstorm 2 winters earlier, and somehow Thursday dinners became our tradition. He made grilled cheese in a cast-iron skillet. I brought tomato soup. That night he took one look at my face and said, "Who did what?" I sat at his small kitchen table surrounded by houseplants and old photos of his late wife and told him everything. The backyard party, the phone call, the group chat, the misspelled name. When I got to "she'll do it," she always does. My voice cracked. Mr. Ellis didn't interrupt. He believed people deserved the dignity of finishing the truth. After a long silence, he slid a napkin toward me. "You know what happens when a family uses one child as a table leg?" he asked. I wiped my eyes. "What?" "Everybody leans on her. Nobody thanks her. Then the day she moves, they blame her because the table wobbles." I let out a shaky breath. "I don't want revenge." "Good," he said. "Revenge keeps you tied to people who already took too much. I just want to stop feeling invisible." Mr. Ellis leaned back. "Then stop standing in rooms where they refuse to look." That sentence followed me home. It followed me through the shower, through another sleepless night, through the next week of calls I didn't answer. Mom called every morning at 7:30. I knew because she left voicemails. "Hannah, this silent treatment is childish. Hannah, your father is very hurt. Hannah, Blake is under real pressure right now. Hannah, you can't punish an entire family over one forgotten birthday." One forgotten birthday. As if the birthday were the whole story. It was never just the birthday. It was my 10th birthday when Grandma brought me a cupcake, because Mom and Dad were at Blake's baseball banquet. It was my 13th birthday when we were supposed to go to Olive Garden, but Blake's coach called about extra practice. It was my senior awards night when I won a health sciences scholarship, and my parents missed it because Blake had a fundraiser. It was my nursing pinning ceremony when Mom texted, "We'll celebrate later." "Honey, Kara's bridal shower is this weekend." It was Christmas stockings with Blake's name embroidered in red thread, and mine written on a paper tag because Mom said she would order mine next year. She never did. It was every family photo where I stood at the edge. Every dinner where my work was nice but Blake's food truck was legacy. Every time Mom said, "Your brother needs more support than you do." As if needing less meant hurting less. As if learning not to ask made me less human. The following Sunday, my parents demanded I come to dinner. I almost refused. Then I changed my mind. Not because I planned to apologize. Because I wanted to hear them say it to my face. My parents still lived in the same split-level house in Westerville, Ohio, where Blake and I grew up. It wasn't rich. It wasn't glamorous. It was the kind of house with a basketball hoop over the garage, church bulletins on the fridge, and one room where all the important family memories lived. By important, I mean Blake's memories. His framed baseball jersey hung in the den. His food truck newspaper article sat on the mantel. His wedding portrait filled half the hallway wall. A photo of him beside his first truck with Mom crying proudly into a napkin sat right beside the television. My college graduation picture used to be on the bottom shelf of the bookcase behind a ceramic pumpkin. When I walked in that night, I glanced toward the shelf. The picture was gone. I froze. Mom noticed. "Oh, I moved some things around before small group," she said quickly. "Don't start picking at little things." Little things. That was how my family survived itself. Everything that hurt me was always a little thing. A little forgotten birthday. A little missing photo. A little joke. A little favor. A little bill. A little empty chair. One little thing at a time until my whole life felt like a room where my name had been erased from the door. Dinner was roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, and peach cobbler. Blake's favorite. I hated peach cobbler. No one asked. For 15 minutes they talked around me. Blake's new truck wrap. Blake's county fair schedule. Blake's Instagram growth. Blake's plans to sell smoked brisket outside a college football stadium. Then Dad set down his fork. "Hannah," he said, using the voice that made the room smaller. "We need to discuss your attitude." I folded my napkin in my lap. "My attitude? You embarrassed your mother by ignoring her calls." "I didn't ignore them." I chose not to answer. His eyes narrowed. "Don't get cute." Blake leaned back in his chair. "Look, Han, nobody is trying to rob you. I have an opportunity. You have money sitting there. It's not complicated." Kara touched his arm like he was being brave. Mom's eyes were already wet. "We forgot one birthday, sweetheart." "One?" I asked. Dad's fork hit his plate. "You are 34 years old. Stop acting like a child." "No," I said. "I was a child when this started." The room went still. Blake looked up. I had never said that before. Not out loud. Mom pressed her napkin to her mouth. "We did our best." I looked at her. "Did you?" Dad pushed his chair back. "That is enough." But it wasn't. Not anymore. I stood slowly. My hands shook, so I pressed them flat against the table. "You forgot my birthday," I said. "Then you asked me to pay for Blake's celebration. Then you discussed my bonus in a group chat like it belonged to the family. You spelled my name wrong while spending my money." Kara looked down. Blake's jaw tightened. "You weren't supposed to see that," he said. I almost smiled. Not "I shouldn't have said it." Not "I'm sorry." Just "you weren't supposed to see." That told me everything. Dad stood. "You have always been dramatic. Blake is trying to build something real. A business. A name. A legacy. You work shifts at a hospital." I felt that sentence land. You work shifts. Not you help children breathe. Not you trained new respiratory staff. Not you held a terrified mother's hand while her son came off oxygen. Just shifts. Blake shrugged. "Dad's right. I'm the one carrying the Mercer name forward. You don't have kids, you don't have a husband, and you don't have a business. What exactly are you saving all that money for?" I looked at my brother. He was confident in the way only favored sons are confident. Not because he was cruel every second of the day, but because the room had always rearranged itself around his comfort. Even his selfishness had been polished into ambition. "I'm not giving you the money," I said. The room reacted like I had thrown a glass. Mom gasped. Blake sat forward. Dad's voice dropped. "Excuse me." I said no. The silence that followed was heavy with 34 years of me saying yes. Yes, I'll switch shifts. Yes, I'll bring dessert. Yes, I'll pay the bill. Yes, I'll help clean up. Yes, I'll understand. Yes, Blake needs it more. No was a language they had never heard from me. Dad's face darkened. In this house, we support family. I picked up my purse. Then maybe someday you'll learn how. Mom started crying harder. Blake muttered unbelievable. I walked to the front door. No one followed. Outside, the porch light flickered over Blake's truck in the driveway. The custom decal on the side shined under the light. My parents had helped pay for it. I stood there breathing cold air into my lungs. Then I made a decision. I was going to buy myself something they could not take, borrow, guilt, rename, or hand to Blake. A place. A small place. A place where my name would be spelled right on the mailbox. 2 weeks later, I drove north to Lake Erie to see a cottage. It wasn't fancy. That was the first thing I loved about it. The listing called it cozy, which meant small. It called it full of charm, which meant old. Both were true. 2 bedrooms. 1 bathroom. Pale blue shutters. A narrow porch. A kitchen with yellow tile from the 1970s. A backyard that rolled toward a strip of lakefront where tall grass bent in the wind. The realtor, Patty, apologized for the outdated cabinets. I barely heard her. I stood in the living room, looking through wide windows at water flashing silver under the afternoon sun. Mine. The word rose inside me before logic could stop it. Mine. Not ours. Not the family's. Not something to be discussed over dinner while my father explained why Blake deserved it more. Mine. The owners already moved to Florida, Patty said. They're motivated. But you should take your time. Maybe bring your family back to look. No, I said. She blinked. I smiled. No need. I know. After the showing, I sat in my car outside the realtor's office for almost 20 minutes, with my hands wrapped around the steering wheel. I could hear my father's voice in my head. Irresponsible, selfish, dramatic, reckless. Then I looked down at the house brochure on the passenger seat and realized that voice had never protected me. It had only kept me small, so I went back inside. The cottage cost $238,000. My bonus covered the down payment, repairs, and furniture that did not come from anyone else's basement. My credit was excellent because I had spent my entire adult life being careful, practical, and invisible. The mortgage officer congratulated me. Carmen screamed in the break room when I told her. Mr. Ellis hugged me so hard his glasses went crooked. My mother found out from Facebook. I waited until the keys were in my hand. Then I posted one picture. Just my hand holding the key ring in front of the blue front door. Caption: bought myself a birthday present this year. Lake weekends begin now. I turned off notifications after 3 minutes. By the time I checked again, there were 42 texts. Mom. What is this? Mom, call me. Dad. Where did the money come from? Blake. You bought a cottage but couldn't help with my truck event. Wow. Aunt Denise, honey. Your mother says you're making big decisions without the family. Are you okay? Cousin Marcy. Your place looks adorable. Also, your mom is freaking out, LOL. Dad again. This is irresponsible. We need to talk. Blake must be nice spending family money on yourself. Family money. I stared at that phrase for a long time. Then I blocked Blake for the weekend. Not forever. Just long enough to hear the lake instead of his entitlement. The first night I slept on an air mattress in the empty living room. The heat clanked. The refrigerator hummed. Wind pressed against the windows. I slept better than I had in years. The next morning, I made coffee in a chipped mug the previous owners had left behind and sat on the back steps wrapped in a blanket. The lake was gray and restless. Gulls cried overhead. Somewhere nearby, someone started a lawnmower. Nothing was perfect. The bathroom faucet dripped. The porch needed sanding. One bedroom smelled like cedar and dust. The walkway had a crack wide enough to catch my shoe. But every flaw felt honest. No one was pretending. No one was smiling for pictures while erasing someone from the frame. Over the next month, I drove up whenever my schedule allowed. Carmen helped me paint the living room a soft cream color. Mr. Ellis mailed me a handwritten list titled, Things Every House Needs. A flashlight, a good broom, batteries, soup, a chair that makes you want to stay a while. I bought the chair first. It was wide, green, and ugly in the most comfortable way. I put it beside the window facing the water. Above it, I hung my respiratory therapist license. Not in a hallway corner, not behind a pumpkin, right where I could see it. Beside it, I hung a photo from Mercy Children's, our asthma care team, after receiving the hospital award. Carmen was laughing. My supervisor had her arm around my shoulder. I looked exhausted, proud, and fully present in my own life. On the opposite wall, I hung nothing from my childhood. Not yet. Some walls need to breathe before they can hold history. When I sent housewarming invitations, I hesitated over my family's names. Mom, Dad, Blake. Old guilt is a physical thing. It lives in the wrist, the throat, the stomach. It tells you that boundaries are cruelty. It tells you peace is your job. It tells you one more chance won't hurt, but it always does. I invited Carmen, Mr. Ellis, 3 coworkers, my supervisor, and Marcy, the only cousin who had texted me like I was a person instead of a problem. That Saturday, my tiny cottage filled with laughter. Carmen brought a toolbox and margarita mix. My supervisor brought a plant and a card that said, "For the home you earned." Mr. Ellis arrived in a bow tie carrying a framed black and white photo of Lake Erie from the 1960s. He said every house needed one old thing that didn't ask to be explained. We ate chili from paper bowls. Someone brought cornbread. Someone else brought apple pie. Marcy showed up with flowers and whispered, "Your mom told everyone you were having a breakdown." I laughed, a real laugh. Do I look broken? She looked around at the painted walls, the mismatched chairs, the lake shining beyond the windows. "No," she said, "you look free." That evening I posted photos. Carmen holding a paint roller like a sword. Mr. Ellis asleep in the green chair. Me on the porch between 2 hanging ferns, smiling so widely I almost didn't recognize myself. Caption: First housewarming. First home that feels like mine. Grateful for the people who show up. That caption caused more trouble than the house. Because people noticed. Church friends commented. Old neighbors liked the post. My former Sunday school teacher wrote, "Beautiful Hannah, you deserve to be celebrated." By Monday, my mother wasn't just upset. She was embarrassed. And in my family, embarrassment was treated like a house fire. The real fire started the following Saturday at Blake's food truck launch. I wasn't planning to go. Then Aunt Denise texted me, "Your mom is telling everyone you're sick and overwhelmed. She said you didn't come because you're embarrassed about making rash decisions. Thought you should know." I read that message while sitting at my cottage kitchen table, drinking coffee from the chipped mug. Sick, overwhelmed, embarrassed. That was the story now. Not that they forgot my birthday. Not that they demanded $12,000. Not that I finally said no. They had turned my boundary into a breakdown because that was easier than admitting what they had done. So I went. Not to fight, not to scream, not to ruin Blake's day. I went because I was done letting other people narrate my life. The event was held in the parking lot of Grace Community Church, the same church where I had played an angel in the Christmas pageant at 7 and sat alone in the back pew at 16, while my parents stood in the aisle congratulating Blake after youth group awards. There were folding tables, red checkered cloths, balloons tied to the food truck mirrors, and a hand-painted sign that said, "Mercer Smokehouse. Second truck launch." Blake stood near the serving window in a black t-shirt with his logo across the chest, shaking hands like a local politician. Dad hovered nearby, clapping men on the shoulders, saying things like, "We always knew Blake had the drive." Mom moved between tables with her camera ready, collecting compliments. For a moment, nobody noticed me. Then Mrs. Donnelly from the old block turned around with a paper tray of brisket in her hands. "Hannah," she said brightly, "I saw your cottage online. It looks beautiful." The nearest conversation softened. My mother's head snapped toward me. I smiled. "Thank you. I love it." Mrs. Donnelly leaned closer, lowering her voice, but not enough. "I was surprised your parents weren't at the housewarming. Your mother said you needed some space because you were under stress." There it was, the opening. I felt Mom staring at me. Dad's smile froze. Blake looked over from the truck window. The old Hannah would have laughed awkwardly. She would have protected everyone. She would have swallowed the truth and gone home sick with herself. But that Hannah did not own my voice anymore. "I wasn't under stress," I said calmly. "I just didn't invite them." Mrs. Donnelly blinked. "Oh." Mom rushed over with a bright smile. "Hannah, sweetheart, this probably isn't the place." "It's fine, Mom," I said. Mrs. Donnelly asked a fair question. Dad appeared beside her. His voice was low. "Careful." That one word landed like a hand on my shoulder. "Careful. Be quiet. Protect us. Disappear." "Not this time." Mrs. Donnelly looked from me to my parents, confused. I kept my voice even. They weren't invited because my family forgot my birthday, held a party for Blake that same night, and then called me before midnight to ask for $12,000 for this event. The parking lot went quiet in a strange ripple, not fully silent, just quiet enough. A woman at the lemonade table stopped pouring. A man from Dad's Bible study looked down at his shoes. Blake's face flushed dark red. Mom whispered Hannah. I looked at her. No yelling, no scene, just the truth. Blake marched over, still holding his serving gloves. You really want to do this here? I turned to him. No, Blake. I wanted a birthday call. A few people looked away. Dad's jaw tightened. Mrs. Donnelly's face softened with something I did not expect. Shame. Not mine. Theirs. Hannah, she said quietly. I didn't know. Most people didn't, I said. Dad tried to recover. He gave a small, stiff laugh. Families have misunderstandings. Hannah has always been emotional. Before I could answer, Carmen's voice came from behind me. She helped keep 3 kids out of the ICU this month, she said. I turned. Carmen stood there in jeans and a Mercy Children's hoodie holding 2 lemonades. I had told her not to come. Of course she had ignored me. She looked directly at my father. Emotional isn't an insult. But if you mean responsible, exhausted, and tired of being used, then yes. She is very emotional. Nobody laughed. Blake's mouth opened, then closed. One of Dad's church friends, Mr. Wallace, cleared his throat. Richard, he said slowly, I didn't realize Hannah spent so many birthdays alone. Dad's face changed. For the first time in my life, I saw my father with no script, no lecture, no authority, no way to make me the problem without making himself look worse. I didn't stay long. I didn't need to. The damage was not loud. It was worse. It was clear. Before leaving, I bought a brisket sandwich. I paid full price. Then I looked at Blake and said, Consider this my contribution. Carmen nearly choked on her lemonade. That night my mother called 12 times. Dad texted once, Thursday. Dinner. Bring whatever you think you need to bring. This ends now. I looked toward the closet where I had stacked 3 plastic storage bins after moving. Inside were birthday cards, school programs, photos, invitations, and small scraps of proof that I had once tried very hard to belong. Yes, I thought, it does. Thursday night, I rang my parents' doorbell. I still had a key. I didn't use it. Dad opened the door wearing his gray pullover, the one he wore when he wanted to seem relaxed while controlling the room. His eyes dropped to the 3 plastic bins at my feet. What's all this? Memories. His mouth tightened. Don't start with drama tonight. I picked up the first bin. Then don't confuse honesty with drama. He stepped aside. The hallway looked exactly the same. Blake's jersey. Blake's article. Blake and Kara's wedding portrait. Blake standing beside his first food truck while Mom cried beside him like he had saved the town. The bookcase shelf where my graduation photo used to sit was now filled with decorative candles. I stopped. Mom appeared from this dining room, wiping her hands on a towel. What happened to my graduation picture? I asked. She glanced at the shelf. Oh, I moved things around. Where is it? I don't remember, Hannah. Don't pick at little things. Little things. Again. Dinner began badly. Blake arrived 10 minutes late and didn't apologize. Kara gave me a careful smile, the kind people give a dog they think might bite. Mom served extra potatoes like starch could soften the room. Dad said grace and thanked God for bringing this family back to unity. I kept my eyes open. After dinner, Dad leaned back. Now he said, let's resolve this nonsense. I stood and brought the bins to the table. Blake groaned. Are we seriously doing props? Yes, I said. I opened the first bin. This is from my 10th birthday. I placed a photo on the table. A little girl in a purple sweater sat at the kitchen counter with a grocery store cupcake. The candle had melted halfway down. Behind her, the clock read 9:43. You were at Blake's baseball banquet, I said. Grandma brought me that cupcake because she said every child deserves a candle. Mom's face changed, only for a second, but I saw it. I placed another photo down. My 13th birthday. You promised Olive Garden. Blake's coach called about extra practice. Dad took him. Mom said we'd reschedule. Dad crossed his arms. That was years ago. I know, I said. I was there. Another item. A school program. My senior awards night. I won the health sciences scholarship. Neither of you came because Blake had a preseason fundraiser. Blake looked away. Another. A graduation invitation still in its envelope. My nursing pinning ceremony. I mailed this to you. Mom texted that you couldn't make it because Kara's bridal shower was the same weekend. Kara whispered, I didn't know that. No, I said. You wouldn't have. It worked better when nobody knew. Mom's eyes filled. Hannah, we can't go back and fix every little mistake. No, I said. but you could stop calling them little. I opened the second bin. This one held ordinary cruelty, not legal documents, not contracts, not dramatic evidence from a lawyer's office. Just family life. A Facebook post from my 29th birthday when my parents posted about Blake's brisket competition, but not me. A Christmas card photo with Mom, Dad, Blake, Kara, and their dog. I had taken the picture. A group text where Mom wrote, "Don't ask Hannah, she'll make it complicated," when someone suggested inviting me to a beach weekend. A screenshot from Blake's Instagram story. Me washing dishes after Thanksgiving dinner with the caption, "At least she's useful for something." Blake stared at it. I was joking. I looked at him. "Were you?" His face reddened. Dad slapped his palm on the table. "Enough. You collected grievances like some kind of victim scrapbook." I flinched. But I didn't sit down. "No," I said. "I collected proof for myself because every time I said I was hurt, you told me I was exaggerating." The room went quiet. That was the truth underneath everything. Not just that they forgot. Not just that they favored Blake. Not just that they wanted money. The deepest wound was that they had trained me to doubt my own pain. I opened the third bin. Only 3 things were inside. A small paper crown from my 6th birthday. A birthday card from Grandma. And a folded sheet of notebook paper. I smoothed it on the table. "This is a letter I wrote when I was 11. Mom put one hand over her mouth. I read it aloud. "Dear future me, when you grow up, please have a birthday where nobody leaves early for Blake. Please have a cake that you picked. Please have someone take a picture where you are in the middle." My voice almost broke. Almost. I set the letter down. I was 11. I already knew my place. Mom cried then. Not pretty tears. Not controlled tears. Her face collapsed in a way I had never seen. "Hannah," she whispered. Dad stood so fast his chair hit the wall. "What do you want?" he demanded. "You want us to say we failed fine. We failed. Blake needed more. He had talent, drive, a future tied to this family. You were always independent. You never seemed to need us." There it was. The family myth. I didn't need them because I had stopped asking. I was independent because nobody came. I was strong because falling apart was not an option. "You're right," I said softly. "I don't need you the way I used to." For the first time that night, Dad looked uncertain. I turned to Blake. "You said I owed the family. I don't. I don't owe you my bonus, my weekends, my contacts, my silence, or my pain." Blake swallowed. "I didn't think it was that bad." "That's because it was never happening to you." Kara reached for his hand, but he didn't take it. I looked at Mom. "I loved you so much that I kept shrinking to make you comfortable. I made excuses for you. I told myself Blake needed more. I told myself you'd notice me when things calmed down." I picked up the paper crown. But things never calmed down. Because the emergency was never real. The emergency was that Blake might not be the center. Mom sobbed into her napkin. I put the crown back in the bin. "I'm not asking you to fix my childhood. You can't. I'm not asking you to become different people overnight. I'm asking you to understand this." I looked at each of them. I am done paying for a place at a table where my chair was never saved. Dad's jaw worked, but no words came. That was new. I carried the bins to the front door. Mom followed me into the hallway. "Hannah, please don't leave like this." I turned around. "I'm not leaving like this," I said. "I'm leaving like me." Her face twisted. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not angry enough to destroy you. But I finally respect myself enough to stop letting you destroy me." Blake appeared behind her. "Hannah," he said. I waited. He looked smaller than usual. "I'm sorry," he said. Dad made a disgusted sound from the dining room, but Blake kept his eyes on me. "I don't know how to fix it," he added. I nodded. "Start by not asking me to pay for your party." A weak, ashamed smile crossed his face. "Yeah," he said. "Okay." It wasn't enough, but it was honest. I walked out with the bins. This time, Blake moved his truck without being asked. Progress can be embarrassingly small. Sometimes it looks like an apology. Sometimes it looks like someone finally getting out of your way. A year passed. Not magically. Not cleanly. Real healing is not a movie montage. There were ugly phone calls, quiet holidays, awkward texts, weeks when I missed my mother so badly, I almost drove to Westerville just to sit in her kitchen and pretend nothing had happened. There were also therapy sessions. I started going every other Thursday after my supervisor gently said, "Hannah, you care for everyone. Like it's a reflex. Who cares for you?" At first, therapy felt like opening a closet packed too full. Everything fell out at once. Dr. Avery helped me name things. Emotional neglect, Golden child. Family role. Boundaries. I didn't want labels for my childhood. I wanted a mother who remembered my cake. But naming the pattern helped me stop worshiping it. I spent Thanksgiving at the cottage with Carmen, Mr. Ellis, and 2 coworkers who couldn't travel home. We made turkey, burned the first batch of rolls, watched old movies, and took a group photo where I stood in the middle. At Christmas, I visited my parents for 2 hours. I drove myself. I left when Dad made a comment about people who abandon tradition. I cried in my car for 10 minutes. Then I went home and made soup. That was healing too. Not never hurting. Leaving anyway. Blake changed in uneven ways. He texted less when he needed something, more when he didn't. Sometimes he sent pictures from the food truck with captions like, "You'd laugh at this customer." Sometimes I answered. Sometimes I didn't. He paid for his own launch party. It was smaller than planned. Nobody died. Mom started sending birthday cards early, as if punctuality could repair decades. The first one said too much. The second was better. The third simply said, "I am learning. I love you." Mom. I kept that one. Dad did not apologize. Not really. Once he said, "Your mother misses you." I said, "Do you?" He changed the subject. That told me where we were. I accepted it. Acceptance is not approval. It is refusing to keep arguing with reality. On my 35th birthday, I woke up at the cottage to sunlight on the lake and the smell of cinnamon rolls. Carmen had driven up the night before and taken over my kitchen with the confidence of a woman who believed birthdays were sacred. Mr. Ellis sat at the table wearing his bow tie, reading the newspaper upside down because he had forgotten his glasses and refused to admit it. Birthday girl Carmen sang badly. I laughed before I even got out of bed. By noon, the cottage was full. Co-workers, neighbors, Marcy and her husband, 2 friends from therapy group, my supervisor, 3 kids from next door who had drawn me birthday cards featuring a giant cake and what appeared to be a dragon. There were no expensive decorations. No professional photos. No banner about legacy. Just paper plates, grilled burgers, lemonade music from a small speaker, and people who looked at me when they spoke. Carmen brought a lemon cake. 35 candles made the top look mildly dangerous. "Make a wish," she said. I looked around the room. For years, my wish had been the same. Please see me. Please choose me. Please remember me. That day I realized I needed a new wish, because I had already chosen myself. Before I could blow out the candles, a car pulled into the gravel driveway. The room quieted. Through the window, I saw Blake step out of his truck. He held a small gift bag. Behind him, my mother got out of the passenger seat with a bakery box in her hands. "No, Dad." My chest tightened, but not like before. This was not panic. This was awareness. I walked outside before they could knock. Blake lifted the gift bag. "Peace offering," he said. Mom looked nervous. Smaller somehow. Not weak, just less polished. "We didn't want to intrude," she said. "But I wanted to bring this myself." She opened the bakery box. Inside was a lemon cupcake with white frosting and 1 yellow candle. My throat tightened. "I know there's cake already," she said quickly. "I know this doesn't fix anything. I remembered lemon. For a moment, I was 34 in scrubs, with a matchstick and a cupcake. Then I was 11 at the kitchen counter. Then I was 6 at the edge of a photograph. Then I was here, standing in front of my own home, surrounded by people who had come for me. I took the box. "Thank you," I said. Mom's eyes filled, but she didn't make the tears my responsibility. That was new. Blake handed me the gift bag. Inside was a framed photo, not one I remembered. I was about 8 years old, sitting in the backyard under the maple tree with a book open on my knees. My hair was messy. My socks didn't match. I was smiling at something outside the frame. Just me. No Blake. No party. No proof that I was useful. Just a little girl existing. "I found it in the garage," Blake said, in one of Dad's old boxes. "I thought you should have it." I looked at him. "Thank you." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I'm sorry I didn't see it." I glanced through this window at my friends laughing in the kitchen, at Carmen pretending not to spy, at Mr. Ellis absolutely spying. "Me too," I said. Mom touched the bakery box. "Could we stay for a little while?" A year earlier, I might have said yes, because I was afraid of hurting her. That day, I looked at myself honestly. Then I said for cake. "Not the whole afternoon." Mom nodded quickly. "Yes, of course." Boundaries do not always slam doors. Sometimes they open them halfway and keep one hand on the knob. Forgiveness was not the price of admission into my home. Respect was. Inside, Carmen hugged Blake because she had no sense of subtlety. Mr. Ellis shook my mother's hand and said, You raised a strong woman in a tone that suggested she should think very carefully before answering. Mom looked at me. I know, she said softly. I'm starting to know. We lit the candles on Carmen's lemon cake. Then, because Carmen insisted, we lit the single candle on Mom's cupcake too. 36 flames in total. 35 for the years I had survived. One for the little girl still waiting to be remembered. I blew them all out. Everyone cheered. Later, after the dishes were stacked and the sun started sinking, I walked down to the water alone. The lake moved in soft gold waves. Behind me, the cottage glowed with warm window light. Laughter drifted through the screen door. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Dad. Happy birthday. 2 words. No apology, no explanation, no performance. A year ago, I would have stared at that message like it was a locked door. Now I looked at it like a postcard from a country I no longer lived in. I typed back, "Thank you." Then I put the phone away. Some people may never love you the way you deserved. That truth can break you for a while, but it can also free you. Because when you stop begging to be chosen by people who benefit from your silence, you begin to hear the voices that were there all along. The friend who says you deserve more, the neighbor who saves you a chair, the coworker who remembers your favorite cake, the younger version of yourself whispering from somewhere deep inside, "Please don't abandon me too." Family is not supposed to be a place where you disappear. Legacy is not a last name carried by the loudest person in the room. Respect is not something you earn by giving until you are empty. And dignity is the day you stop confusing being needed with being loved. I still have the photo Blake gave me. It hangs in the cottage living room beside my license, my hospital award, and the picture from my first housewarming. The little girl under the maple tree smiles out at the room. For years, nobody looked closely enough to see her. Now everyone who enters my home does. And every birthday since, I make the same promise before I blow out the candles. I will never again shrink to fit inside someone else's version of family. I will never again pay for love with pieces of myself. I will never again mistake an empty chair for where I belong. So let me ask you this. If your family only remembers you when they need something, is it selfish to finally choose yourself? Would you have let my mother stay for cake? Or would you have closed the door?